Alright, let's start today with a game of Spot the Difference. Because in my hands here I have two WiiM streamers, and one of them is the Pro that we covered last year, and one of them is the Pro Plus that was announced a couple of months ago. Can you tell which one is the Pro, which one is the Pro Plus?
This episode is brought to you by Made by Music, the new podcast from Cambridge Audio.
Welcome back, everybody. Yes, these two network streamers or streaming DACs are made by a company called LinkPlay. They're a Chinese company, although they have headquarters in the USA. And one of them is called the WiiM Pro, and the newer one is called the WiiM Pro Plus. And the Pro and the Pro Plus are visually identical. They run on the same streaming platform, so the same software platform. They use the same WiiM Home app. They have the same connectivity suite on the back, and they have the same touch-sensitive controls on the front. Of course, the most obvious difference between these two WiiM streamers to the naked eye is the price, because the WiiM Pro sells for $149 US, whereas the WiiM Pro Plus sells for $219 US. One less obvious difference is their weight, in that the Pro Plus weighs 100 grams more than the Pro. And I asked LinkPlay why this is. And they said, John, well, it's because we put a new DAC in it. And then they told me, okay, the second reason why the Pro Plus might be heavier is because we put a new ADC circuit in it as well. That's for the analog input on the back. I don't use that. I'm never testing that. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute, those two things are going to be pretty light. And then they said, yeah, the third thing we did, we added some ballast to the internals of the casework on the Pro Plus, I think, just to make it feel more substantial in the hand. And those of you that saw my WiiM Pro video last year know that I didn't really take to the sound of the DAC inside the WiiM Pro. I much preferred it connected to an external DAC. In fact, I would say that the DAC inside the WiiM Pro and also the WiiM Mini, I think it's the same one, is possibly one of the weakest sounding DACs that I've heard in the last few years. And if ultimate sound quality is your end goal, then find the streamer that you like the functionality and the look of and the app the best, and then pair it with the DAC you like the sound of the best. Because today we're going to be looking at the WiiM Pro Plus as an all-in-one streaming DAC, and we're going to be comparing it to a bunch of other all-in-one streaming DACs. So looking at this as a streaming DAC, we know that the analog audio comes out of the back here, out of these two RCA sockets, and it is converted internally from digital to analog by a DAC circuit, and the DAC circuit in the WiiM Pro Plus has been improved. So now they're using an AKM Velvet Sound DAC chip, which according to WiiM is fed by an improved clocking circuit and an improved power supply. I guess that's just a reminder that the sound of a DAC is not just its DAC chip. I know I beat this drum pretty often on this channel, but those of you getting hung up on the name or the model number of the DAC chip and going, oh, it's going to sound like that, or it's got that DAC chip and that one's got that DAC chip, and therefore this is just you trying to shop just basically on the internet without actually listening to anything. I think that's what's going on. And you can't do it. You can't do it because the power supply and the clocking circuit also influence the sound of the DAC. And also influencing the sound of the DAC is the op amp that precedes these analog outputs. In this case, I believe that WiiM have put a Texas Instruments op amp, which I think is different from the one inside the Pro. So that too will affect the sound of what we might call the DAC circuit. And I believe that WiiM are boasting minus 110 dB of, I think, THD on that output. So that brings us to our first side-by-side comparison, in that how does the sound of the WiiM Pro Plus compare to the sound of the WiiM Pro? And to test their sound quality, I put together a playlist in Tidal and then ran this playlist quite a number of times through each streaming DAC, which actually reminds me, this just arrived just now. My new copy of Swordfishtrombones, which is possibly, I won't say it's the best Tom Waits album, but it's one of the best. It's certainly the first of a very new direction for Waits that started, I think, in '83 with this one, then continued with Rain Dogs, and then with Frank's Wild Years, but didn't really stop there because Bone Machine from '92 was just utter barking madness. But I mentioned this album because I've already bought the CD of this. Yes, it's remastered. No, they didn't mess it up. The dynamic range of this 2023 remaster is just as good, if not better, than the 80s original. So buy this without hesitation. And as for the hi-fi system into which I dropped the WiiM Pro Plus and the WiiM Pro, you can see it behind me. We've got the KEF R3 Meta, NAD, M23 Power Amp, PS Audio Preamp. Yeah, it sounds pretty damn amazing. In fact, I think that's a much higher caliber system than which most people would use with these WiiM streamers. So it really allowed me to kind of, I guess, yeah, pull the mouth open on what they sound like. And the difference for once, between the Pro Plus and the Pro was what you might call, some of you might call, night and day. It is a pronounced difference. Going back to the Pro after listening to the Pro Plus for an hour, it just sounds murky, congealed. It's almost like somebody rolled off the top as well. So it's just, yeah, it just reminded me of what a weak DAC there is inside the Pro, and therefore what a terrific improvement LinkPlay have made to the sound of the Pro Plus. And in the interests of greater clarity as we move through this video, because we're going to do more side-by-side comparisons than I normally do, because of that, I'm going to score the sounds of these streaming DACs out of 10. So I would give the WiiM Pro a 2 out of 10. And I guess if you want to know, that also applies to the WiiM Mini. 2 out of 10. And then I would give the WiiM Pro Plus a 6 out of 10. Now, my 2021 Bluesound Node is languishing in the sun in Portugal right now. But what about the much more expensive Node X that I have right here, right now in Germany? Well, that clearly brings us to a second side-by-side comparison. And using that same playlist, I would say that the Node X just about has the edge when it comes to detail retrieval and top-end shimmer. It's not a night and day difference. The Node X doesn't blow the WiiM Pro Plus out of the water. Yeah, the Node X is just a tiny bit better than the Pro Plus, according to me, in my listening tests in this room with the gear that I'm using. And the Node X also kicks a little bit harder in the low end than the Pro Plus. Not a night and day difference, a small difference. So that means if the WiiM Pro Plus is a 6 out of 10, then the Node X is a 7 out of 10. And in case you're wondering what a 10 out of 10 is, I would reserve that for something like the Mola Mola Tambaki. But connectivity and streaming support aren't the same on the Node X as it is on the WiiM Pro Plus. So like the WiiM Pro, the Pro Plus gives us, let me get this right, Apple AirPlay 2, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, and it also gives us Google Chromecast built in, which the Node family doesn't do. So I think that's one of the advantages that the WiiM series of streamers has over the Node series of streamers is, yeah, Google Chromecast. Now, why do I really like Chromecast? Well, maybe it's because I play a lot of DJ mixes on SoundCloud and I find it really easy just to punch those in from my phone and let them run through my hi-fi system. Otherwise, I'd have to use AirPlay from an iPhone. Not everybody has an iPhone, so if you're on an Android phone, Chromecast can be very valuable. And also, as we know, when you're streaming AirPlay, the stream comes from the cloud, from the magic servers in the sky, and it goes to your phone first before going over to the WiiM Pro Plus or the Bluesound or whatever. But I should also point out that the Node series of streamers from Bluesound, especially the last 2 generations, they have HDMI eARC on the back, which the WiiM Pro Plus or the Pro or whatever WiiM we're using, they don't have that. And the Nodes also have a subwoofer output with subwoofer management in the BlueOS app. And again, the WiiM app and the WiiM streamers don't have that output or that management. And it's also important for me to point out here that Roon readiness for the WiiM Pro Plus has not yet been rubber stamped. I believe it's coming, but I don't know when. But in the meantime, Roon users can stream to the Pro Plus's AirPlay input, but my personal preference is to go with the Chromecast input, mainly because I think the Chromecast input does higher res. I know that Chromecast in its normal use case is not gapless, but on Roon it is. However, WiiM also give us a third option of late, and I think this update also applies to the Pro, but it's definitely on the Pro Plus, in that WiiM have included now into their streaming devices support for Squeezelight. So that means that the Pro Plus can serve as a virtual Squeezebox. So you can stream to it from a Logitech Squeezebox server. So I think that's pretty cool. And the other great thing about that is that Roon will stream to anything that looks like a Squeezebox. So you could use the Squeezebox input on the Pro Plus for your Roon streaming, should you wish to. And guess what? I still have a Logitech Squeezebox Touch knocking around here. So that brings us to a third side-by-side comparison. And I gotta say, between the WiiM Pro Plus, the sound coming out of its RCA sockets, and the Logitech Squeezebox Touch, and its sound coming out of its RCA sockets, there isn't a whole lot in it. For me, with my playlist and my ancillary gear here, I think the Pro Plus sounds better separated, so better layer separation just slightly, a little bit better extended in the top, but it's a bit leaner in the mid-range than the sound of the Squeezebox Touch. But again, not night and day differences. Nothing's getting blown out of the water. And in fact, in describing or teasing out those differences, I would say that I was looking for hairs to split. I was really trying to drill in, what are the differences here? There's got to be something. So that's why when it comes to a score out of 10, I'm going to give the Squeezebox Touch the same as the WiiM Pro Plus, 6 out of 10. As many existing WiiM streamer owners know, LinkPlay, the hardware and software developer of these products, they know that LinkPlay are listening very closely to customer feedback. And that's why we're seeing firmware updates adding new functionality and fixing bugs coming thick and fast. I mean, I would say that LinkPlay seem to be an extremely responsive manufacturer when it comes to trying to iron out kinks and adding new features, like the Squeezelight support that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And recently, a parametric EQ was added to the app. So if you want to tweak the sound of your WiiM Pro Plus, you can. I'm not a big fan of parametric EQs. I'm not even sure why. I think I just have this puritanical resistance to them. And maybe it's just an ideological thing, or maybe it's because I don't really need to use them. Maybe at 35 Hertz, I might need to use them in some cases in this room, but not really. It's not a pressing need for me. But anyway, the more exciting new feature for me that WiiM added recently was auto detection on the Toslink input. Because I have my TV connected to the WiiM Pro Plus, so I can run its sound through the Pro Plus's DAC. And yes, LinkPlay has addressed the lip sync or the latency issue with that Toslink input that I flagged in my WiiM Pro video last year, where I said basically when you're watching TV, yeah, the mouth movements lag behind the sound, or vice versa. They weren't in sync, and now they are. They are definitely in sync when using the Pro Plus, and I guess the Pro as well now because it's the same sort of firmware platform, when using either of those two DACs as the DAC for your TV. Now, I've seen many an online magazine state that the WiiM Pro Plus is a Sonos killer without ever having put the two side by side. And I guess what that is, that's just, I guess, publishers' bluster in trying to cut through the noise with a news item. These are news items that I'm talking about here. And I guess we're all guilty of that as publishers from time to time. I know that I am. However, rather than just say that the WiiM Pro Plus is a Sonos destroyer or a Sonos beater, I went out and bought a Sonos Port so I could put it next to the WiiM Pro Plus for, yep, our fourth side-by-side comparison. In Germany, the Sonos Port retails for 449 euros. That's almost twice the price of the WiiM Pro Plus. But I scored a refurbished model for 329 euros. And I think it's quite remarkable how similar, I've got to say this, how similar the Pro and the Pro Plus look to the Sonos Port. Now, in setting up this side-by-side comparison, I expected the Pro Plus to completely trounce, destroy the Sonos Port. And it doesn't. It was another very closely fought battle when it comes to sound quality. And I think the WiiM sounds slightly more tipped up towards the upper mids than the Sonos Port. I'd also say the WiiM has the slightly taller soundstage, and for me, I think the WiiM is the better fit for music like the higher intelligence agency, like Tom Waits. But the Sonos Port injects a little bit more flesh into the mid-range of tracks like Suede's Sleeping Pills and Death in Vegas's Scorpio Rising, and I think that's better suited to weaker sounding recordings like those. So it's kind of like a very small difference, and if you listen to a lot of iffy sounding music, as I do actually, then maybe the Sonos Port is going to be better for you. But if the sound quality of your source material is better, then maybe the WiiM Pro Plus is the better choice for you. However, either way, I'm still only going to give the Sonos Port the same score as I gave to the WiiM Pro Plus, a 6 out of 10, because those differences are small and there's not enough in it for me to say that one is convincingly better than the other. They're just ever so slightly different. But functionally speaking, the WiiM Pro Plus and the Sonos Port are not the same animal, not at all. So the Sonos comes without an HDMI eARC input. Well, that's the same as the Pro Plus, so no worries there. But there's no Toslink input on the back of the port as there is on the back of the Pro Plus. So we can use the Pro Plus for TV, but the Sonos Port is locked out of that. Moreover, there are no touch sensitive controls on the front of the Sonos Port as there are on the WiiM Pro Plus and the Pro, obviously. And also WiiM now ship their remote wand with the Pro Plus, and we don't get any infrared remote with the Sonos Port, although I will add that I couldn't get my remote to work with the WiiM. I put the batteries in every which way. I just could not get the thing to work, so maybe I got a dud. And the Sonos, it doesn't do Chromecast either. It does AirPlay 2, yes. Spotify Connect, yes. It does Tidal Connect, yes. That's why I actually chose Tidal as the platform in which I built my playlist for my listening tests, because I knew that all the streamers that I was going to be testing in this video, they all do Tidal Connect. However, as many Sonos owners will quite rightly point out at this point, is that Sonos integrates more streaming services inside their app than any other streaming platform on the planet. But for me, and I think this is also why Sonos added Tidal Connect and Spotify Connect and AirPlay, is people prefer to use the native apps. So Spotify's own app, Tidal's own app, and then whatever app you're going to use with AirPlay. And I know this because I polled this YouTube audience about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Tidal Connect and Spotify Connect were, I guess, most popular way to stream into a hi-fi system at home. And then behind that was AirPlay and Chromecast. And then you P&P users, I'm sorry, I've always thought you were a minority, and you are. And really for me, the Sonos app behaves a bit like a UP&P app. You know, you have to drill down into the menus. It's not a graphically enticing experience. There isn't album art that pops out at you straight away. It's very text driven. And in that poll, Roon came in a fairly, I would say, fairly tepid third place. I thought that a greater percentage of you would be using Roon at home. I know many audiophiles are extremely enthusiastic about Roon, and I am definitely one of them. I love Roon. It has transformed the way I stream music at home. It's what got me away from the Squeezebox platform. And if Roon were to disappear tomorrow, I'd go back to the Squeezebox platform. But I realize that Roon is expensive, and that's an expense that not everybody is prepared to bear, especially when you've got the convenience of Apple AirPlay 2 and Google Chromecast and then Tidal Connect and Spotify Connect. But I should point out that Roon can stream to any Sonos device. As I said earlier, this video's focus was to look at the WiiM Pro Plus as a all-in-one and inclusive, a standalone streaming DAC. And I have compared it in this video to the WiiM Pro, to the Logitech Squeezebox Touch, to the Bluesound Node X, and to the Sonos Port. That's 4 side-by-side comparisons, which is kind of amazing really, because I only normally have time for 2. But I went the extra mile with this video because I knew I would get loads of questions of what about us, really? You know, what about this, what about that? But anyway, I've got one more for you. I've got a 5th side-by-side comparison. So brace yourselves. So I wanted to know what would happen if I attached the Chord Mojo 2 to the WiiM Pro Plus and put it up against the Bluesound Node X. Which one would sound better? And I hear the WiiM plus Chord combo as a shade better, just a shade better mind, than the Bluesound when it comes to dynamic thrust. And I'd also say that just slightly, the WiiM Chord combo is a little bit more, I guess a little bit more tonally colourful than the Node X. But again, not night and day, no one's getting destroyed. So maybe I would give the Chord plus the WiiM a score of 7.5 out of 10. So it's just marginally better than the Bluesound Node X, but just marginally. But then you have to manage all the wires and then the battery charging of the Mojo 2 if you're taking it out of the house as well. So it's not an all-in-one unit, but as I suggested at the start of this video, if you're after ultimate sound quality, then buy the DAC you like and then just buy the streamer that you like and put them together with cables. Today's focus was all-in-one streaming DACs. Anyway, if you like this video, if you found it informative or entertaining or a bit of both, then please consider giving us a like down below. If you like my attitude towards streamers and especially side-by-side comparisons, because yeah, I bust my ass on this one actually to give you as much information as possible, and that means there'll be no more information forthcoming, not in another video, not even from me in the comments section, because I've got to get on with the next video. So if you can live with that, if you understand that my time is fixed but also short, then please consider subscribing to this channel. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching. Hello, me again. You're watching this video on YouTube, but if you are watching it over on Patreon, you'd probably be seeing it a couple of days earlier, if I have my shit together, that is. And if not earlier, you're definitely going to be seeing a bunch of bloopers at the end of the video of me stuffing up. And believe me, I stuffed up big time when filming this video. So if you'll consider supporting me over on Patreon, even if it's just for a month to buy me a cup of coffee or something, then that would be utterly bloody fantastic. Thank you very much.